IO cars. So we talk about it. The IO cars, when you're rotating through, they are a little bit faster when you're able to go. They're more efficient when you get through in terms of the gas. But you see those chonkers all over the place, and you might think, oh wow, those are just tires. Those are great. I guess I can use them to like break some fall damage or something. No, if you get chonkers, throw them on whatever car you're rotating on. It makes getting over these mountains, gets over the hills. You lose no damage. You get a ton of extra distance. And again, they subscribe to the theory of you either go super early or go super late, except they never go super late. It's always super early. They're always inside the zone way ahead of time, and they play for the middle of the zone. They don't care if they get half and half out, drop directly on top of the head. They basically head towards the southern middle part of the zone, and then they play from there. So this is the part in time where now they actually have to start making decisions. Otherwise, they do the exact same thing. Otherwise,
solve for him overall, but for Steady Cammy and Teak, they're usually 1,000 damage almost above Surge. They can just primarily focus on position. It's just a free game for them overall. Aqua, though, I mean, just talked about his situation. It's looking kind of weird. The thing is, though, this is fine. These are actually the games this trio does really well in, when they start on low a little bit and then boost up and go for that retake on height.
But one thing to note as we do talk about the tournament management mode, despite how Cammy, Steady, and Teak are playing, their strategy in the way they get eliminations relies on them making it all the way through into the end game, right? They're not going to be picking up eliminations almost ever in the early and mid game unless they're manufacturing the ones that we've seen in Storm Surge that we've talked about a few times, where they kind of post up next to a team who they reliably think might be underneath it, and they take that fight if they have the advantage. Other than that, they don't really pick them up. Whereas these other teams are putting themselves in the zone, as we saw Hellfire picking up yet another elimination. So they do have the opportunity to close the gap that way. Noah Riley getting a knock onto Pink. We do have Storm Surge coming through. We have Reason Taste trying to find a little bit of room. Jerky also up on the high ground. He's got a riflet directly behind him. Excuse me, with Kinzo posted up. We're going to swing back on over. Yeah, they're sitting on 3 eliminations, but Hellfire is down. Flonata, very low HP. They're actually going to be able to pull him back and be forced to use Chug Splashes early on, and Scram takes a ton of damage. He's going to get harpooned back in, so Flonata maybe potentially able to save him, but down to a solo and a duo, and instead looks like he's going to leave him.
Every top team has to risk it all for their positions. They're in trouble. Some of their teammates are down. They don't have the spot they want to be in. Meanwhile, Steady, Cammy, and Teak, we're talking about gaps over and over again. They're still keeping it wide open by themselves on a perfect lair, uninterrupted. If they do well this game, they can eclipse 300 points, which is a threshold some FNCS winners have never hit before. In game 2 of day 2.
I mean, is it too, I don't want to say is it too early to call it, but like, I mean, if they get a win, I'm like, do we start celebrating now? Like,
pay attention to the bottom left number whenever we go to their trio. If it hits 70 points or somewhere near 80 this game, I feel like it's already wraps. That being said, though, there's so many different teams flying up in the sky. They're gonna have to survive for a long time. It's not the same situation as last game where there was so many teams dropping all the way towards very end, a lot of solos. There are organized trio clusters all around, 18 teams, 45 players. The math almost adds up perfectly, and now the shots are coming through from Adil, Janus, and Noah Riley too. They're already at, what is this, 11 eliminations? And there's 45 players alive.
I was going to say, Noah's sitting on 8 himself, and they just got 2 more knocks there on that rotation. So they're saying, hey, we got nothing to lose. We've been battling it out every single game off a drop with us over at the beach, and they just fought the trio that came in the day in 2nd place. But now Noah Riley says, I need a little bit of that best fighter in EU talk going back to my name. It's been awful quiet for a while, so let's pump the volume up. Give me the soundbite, Sundown. But it doesn't matter, because we talk about all of this. Look at the low ground. Look at them, the hip to hip, the entire time, priority position, building out with metal. They're gonna low pad to end up just taking a small amount of space. Just make sure that they don't end up extending there, because there's no other time they're gonna end up using it. And they're gonna go up above the convergence. This rotation is gonna be so hard for everyone who's behind them. That's why they wanted to make sure they're in the front. As Janus picks up yet another elimination onto Vettel. Storms are still hamming away. Radiel picks up another one. I believe that's 16 they're pushing on. We could potentially see a 20 elimination game coming out from them. Tripper ends up getting the confirmation onto Rifle. Still 1-4 trio end up being hit by Storm Surge. At least you can see a shot does come through in terms of the charge with the edit, but no confirmation as they continue rotating up towards the convergence.
Every team is trying to play catch up to a moving target that's better, faster, and stronger at height. It's going all the way up to the skies, maybe even the max build limit if they don't stop soon. Hirachi down, Noah Riley traded, Stormrat and Toos now have control. And they might be able to get that revive too if they play their cards right. If they do go for that though, it's only going to be Toos dropping down the pressure. He goes for a reconnect as well. They have to give Kiriachi a little bit of a letdown. A big chop is going to come through. Silver Red still has his footing. It's looking good. Aqua is the one that actually take down Kiriachi. Is this a second shot that might come through as well? I'm not sure, but Aqua's definitely in the situation, in a position to maybe play for retake. The launch pads will come, and I'm not sure which trio this is. It is actually Aqua, Sir, and Fastroki, and they're going for it. Remember, they have to win games over and over to keep up with the people in first place, and they're trying to take things into their own hands.
And Cammy has fallen, but they're inside the top 10 again, and Seti and Teak are still up on their feet. It's something they do, and now that we've pulled towards the convergence and we're going to pull out in a way here in a second, Fastroki ends up getting knocked. That's going to be awful for their chance to try and win the game, and that's Teak who's going to end up picking that up. Aqua comes down the chop. Is
for Teak, I called around 70-80 points, and we're almost right there. A top 3 situation. They're at 62 just on the day. That's more than some of the teams made on the first one, and this is just game number 2. Seti and Teak as a duo will break it down the same way we've seen them take apart so many competitions just as a duo sometimes, a solo sometimes. They're used to being champions. Benji, Fishy, Savage, and Dredda will have a big task all the way on low. It's a convergence. You can't break through half these cubes. You have to play the position. There's a sneaky rat down on the low ground too. Edison is the one gonna get uncharged after that. He's gonna get completely taken out. Teak is actually getting close and personal. Seti is playing insurance, but it's gonna be a 1v3 for Teak down on low. He gets one, looking for the next. 4 seconds in zone, gets pumped down, and now it's all down to Seti playing that heal game.
Seti will get the first med kit off, but then
No!
Seti will not get the med kit off and will get second place there, but still as a duo, we talked about it, their worst placements have been a 7th and a 1st, an 8th and a 5th. Well, I'm sure they will take a second to continue rocking it up there, but Benji, Fishy, and Dredda and Savage take away match number 8 there with a little bit of shenanigans towards the end, a little bit of missed execution, but I think they'll be fine with second.
Life is a comedy sometimes. That game was a funny one. Or a tragedy. We'll see what emotions.
And still, Seti, Cammy, and Teak, if anything, that lead looking a little bit more comfortable. 70 points need to be surmounted by the teams in second and third, and then you got another 20-point drop-off. So realistically, like maybe this game or next game, we might start talking about champions crowned and then the battle for second.
Definitely have that moment. A battle for these spots is the main thing for all these teams. They're kind of sharing games, basically. Like who can play which game? Is it going to be you this time, and we're basically going to have half the points that we could all totally have if we had our own spots? That's the question. The caddy corner fight starts fast. This time Nate is going to be the one picked up first. Thomas HD is not going to miss him off the rip. Got the weapon, got the elimination. It is over. Savage also is going to miss a few shots, crucial ones. Not going to have any mats to be able to live. He's thrown into a completely different atmosphere, a different world. No way to actually build out from the backside. He has to climb his way back up. Benji's gonna be there to help him out a little bit. Malibuca's gonna start to run around. Is it already a 1v3? Maybe. It looks like it. Malibuca's trying to run away. No, his teammates are all the way on the backside. Kind of being a slower fight overall here at Steamy Stacks.
Slower fight until Benji decides to get wall to wall with that epic lever action shotgun. That thing is that's gonna hurt if he's able to get up in that situation, particularly once he gets this medkit on the effective HP in that regard. You're just able to rip through some of these early game engagements, but you can see Shizo Murstache and Malibuca do a good job creating some space, and instead we see a little bit of a fight going on over here. 4ZR also rotating over, so people deciding they need Elim points and they need them now, Shio.
Yeah, usually Misty's kind of a ghost town. Some spooky noises of harvesting happening left and right of just one team. There's never really any super action dropping down. Clement, Floki, Deceptos have had enough of just being and lurking in the shadows. Want to take the game by their own hands. I mean, the last 3 games, if you have a backup plan, a plan D, a plan Z almost, it's time to break it down and get aggressive, get those points in. Doesn't completely work out for them. We're gonna lose Floki for now, but that car is gonna be there for 5 total minutes. They'll turn back to the town and see what's up. Meanwhile, that's Steamy Stacks. Yeah, Benji's almost wall to wall. We're getting there. The first shot will come soon.
Patience is a virtue. It's okay. It'll come. We've seen these fights happen before, and once they do end up resolving, they go pretty quickly. But one thing you've noted about how these teams, they've kind of traded games, and I feel like about like 60% of the case that's been true. We've also seen about 40%, 1 or 2 elims will be traded, and somebody just dips. Somebody just leaves, and they get whatever reboot they can, and they play it out with either a solo or a duo or just like a rebooted shambles trio. We've seen that happen at least 2 or 3 times in these trios, so not always 100% relentless and required to clean up the fight all the way, which Steamy Stacks is one of those places that if you decide to disengage, it's just really hard to stop you. There's so many different ways you can end up going, where if you break line of sight once, it's like, do I really want to spend the time chasing this person? Are we really going to cue the Yakety Stacks up here, get the Benny Hill music going on, and just like, it's not going to happen, right? But I was to say, wall to wall, Benji Fishy goes to the Savage, is going to be the first one to go to Sam. Benji does end up getting in and gets obliterated. Just absolutely bopped right there. Malabuka doing a fantastic job in the wall-to-wall fight, taking down 2 of what are some of the most notarized fighters out of EU, Benji and Mr. Savage.
I kind of felt like a team finisher right there. They're all edited and dropped down at the same time and landed a shot in a very cinematic fashion. I'm liking it. Still upkeeping with style. Even if these fights are kind of brutal, maybe frustrating for the teams back and forth because they will miss out on a game here or there. I'm wondering exactly how the Caddy team looks. We'll tune in with Steady Kamitik at some point, whenever in late game. They'll be low ground or in a solo box. You know how that goes.
No, we know exactly where they'll be. We've been over this, right? They will be on the southern side of the zone, a little bit more towards the central, in an area where the high ground isn't looking directly at them. Every single time. We don't need to look at them towards now. I promise you. We'll tune in. Let's tune in about. We can say 20 seconds after third zone closes, right, observers? We'll put that on the clock, right? 20 seconds after third zone closes. I promise you that's where they're.
Atro actually picking one up in the feed. Wondering how his off spawn's going now, where they're actually getting surge. It should be very different because usually they're fighting a team or at least have people to shoot. It's not going to be the case if a deal's literally not landing there, right? Hold on, we have a little bit of a time advance too. Not quite the third zone, but in the first, a little bit of farming going down. But yeah, my focus, I really want to see what Mitro's up to right now. I want to see exactly if Aqua has his game plan locked down. Some of those top 2 teams who still have one game, this game, a chance to contest and close the gap. If Teek's team does fall, I'm trying to build somewhat of a last chance comeback narrative. There's some other teams who are in that situation. Michael, Astro, Verox, top 6, uncontested, Dirty Docks. They kind of come from the same side. Azteek on the top right, Flois, Hellfire, and Scram, who look very aggressive and nice on the day. They get in trouble, and here it is. Steady Kamitik. Teek a little bit lower. I think someone's finally answered the call, Sundown. He kind of put the Teek signal in the air. Someone stop these guys, and this might be the chance to hold down first place.
A little bit undisciplined on this rotation. They got very split going out there. Teek was a little bit far ahead, and I was about to say, this is the one situation where the zone being revealed here, I'm glad we popped over because we are pulling a little bit farther to the southwest for what's really been the first time in EU. Like, unless we get a really far north zone, this should be the farthest side we're going towards Sludgy Swamp. With that being the case, most of the teams who are rotating away from the north and rotating to the docks, if they are a little bit slower and a little bit more split on the rotation, this is where they could get jumped on. And the fortunate thing is you're never going to commit to a fight in this circumstance, right? The team who ends up coming out late doesn't have any more of an advantage other than just throwing a couple AR shots that way. So unless they're able to really effectively be like, all right, 1, 2, 3, we all shoot Teek, which we saw there for a second, they're not going to burn a launch pad to then jump right down on top of them. They're going to be like, oh yeah, we got 90 damage. Sweet, that Storm Surge is great. And they're going to go next.
Will definitely be a little bit different. I'm wondering what a little bit more south. There's basically a line of teams smack dab in the middle, left to right. We're going to be watching them rotate with that vehicle. They're not going to get as far as before. And there's a huge line of teams vertically as well, top down from the Convergence to Misty Meadows. I wish I could draw on this map. It's basically 2 security lines stopping this first place team from playing the usual game they do. And I don't see chonker tires on an IO car. I see a truck with what is it, Cammy riding on the backside. This is a much different game for that first place team.
Yeah, and largely, again, this is the first time we've seen a zone pulling this far to the southwest. We saw it during the pre-show, how we had that little almost pine tree posted up in the middle of the map, and we are keeping an eye in the bottom right-hand corner as well. There's our current second place team, just by 1 point ahead of Aqua after their performance in the last game. Pulling out that Hellfire and Scram, so our top three. Tiki's in the top corner right now, second place Flonata there in the bottom right hand corner, and then Aqua and Frostroki. We've seen a lot of in the past 2 games. They've played great so far today. Currently not shown on the screen, but this zone will close here. This will be the end of the first, and then where the second zone is actually going to dictate a lot, and potentially whether or not Keddy, Sammy, and Tiki, you can see they are trying to get the Chonkers Tower onto at least some form of car that are going to end up fueling it up, knowing that the rotation is so key. Don't have the IO car, so a little bit of a less for
like Aqua's team did, or use that fast movement to start dip around. Tooth does take one of them out, but it's going to be so hard to actually see anything from a high ground perspective, like Aqua's down to a lower base because there's so many leaves in the way.
Yeah, utilizing those side streams to just dodge, dip, duck, dive, and dodge around all the shots, but not a whole lot of farming. And also, it's about a 50-50 shot when you do get towards these Weeping Wood zone. Somebody's picked up a bunch of Fireflies and just chucked them around, kind of going for the Scorched Earth policy, saying, hey, if you can't have it, neither can I. Right now, we do have a little bit of a tense situation here. Hellfire, Flonata, and Scram wall to wall. It's Noah, Riley, Janus, and Medeal, who we saw no strangers to fighting well at any point in the games. Whether it's the end game, last game, or early on, and as I say that, Janus just wipes Scram with little to no return, and it's going to be tough now for Flonata to fight. Has that charge shotgun, but not able to get in a situation where he can use it. Boom, as I say that, does open a wall, gets a 115, but defensively really hard to fight with that weapon. And that was fast, Shio.
That's the operating word right there. Super speed even. All they did is just waited for Flawless Sustain to drop down to a refarm, interrupted that process in spectacular fashion. That was just so quick. Meanwhile, other teams aren't going to have the same luxury. They'll have to actually climb up to these bases and take fights one-on-one. Reason definitely has to. They were just below Surge before that elimination came in. Their first one of the game so far, really stretching the way. They have to rotate as well, all the way over at Craggy Cliffs. They're barely just that bony, and they need to get down to Sludgy Swamp, so they've got still quite a journey to go. One Elam picked along the way. This is also going pretty well for them overall. They just need to upkeep that pace. Once again, yeah, winning is huge, but getting yourself up to the highest placement possible at the end of the 2 days to really bump up the total prize money you end up walking